Hello and welcome back to the Strength is G podcast. Today I'm answering your questions, a mix of questions that were asked on my Instagram stories and questions from my clients. So if you're listening to this and you left a question, I may well be answering it. I've got quite a few. I think I can get through all of them, but I want to keep this short and sharp. So let's see. First question is, what are range targets? Which is a great question. I put it in one of my carousels on Instagram. I just mentioned range targets and didn't explain what they are. Range targets means that instead of giving you a target of like, you need to do 4 workouts a week, I give you a range. So I say, look, the minimum you need to do is 2. This depends on the person, but if someone who's starting from scratch, the minimum you need to do is 2 Tuesday and Thursday every week. If you can do 4, that's great, and that's going to help you get to your goal quicker. But some weeks when you have presentations, talks, work, travel and things like that, it might not be possible. But can we start by aiming for 2 as a minimum and 4 as like an optimal? And depending on the week, you can sit somewhere within this range. We never go below the 2. So giving someone a range allows them the flexibility to adapt it to their life. When someone, for example, is working on their nutrition and working on a fat loss goal, instead of saying you need to eat 1,850 calories a day, I can give them a range, 1,800 to 1,900 or 1,750 to 1,950. As long as you sit within that range, you are in a calorie deficit. And so as long as you sit within that range, you will be progressing and moving towards your fat loss that you want to achieve. But it also gives that flexibility that sometimes you can be quite strict and be closer to the lower end of that scale. And sometimes you're going to go out for dinner with colleagues or dinner with family and you're going to be towards the higher end of the scale. And what that does is on those days when you're towards the higher end of the scale, you don't just feel like a failure. You just know you're staying within that range, but you don't feel so negative that you've gone over. Whereas when you have this one number, you're either over it or under it or bang on. Whereas the range works much better in terms of staying positive about your goal. Also with a calorie target, I would look at your weekly average. So for example, you go out for dinner, you might end up even at 2,000 calories, but the other days you stick towards 1,750, and at the end of the week, your average calories for that week is still within that range. So that we set you. So that's why I use a range. And it's just mentally a much better and it's much better for you mentally to deal with rather than having just one number and you either hit it or you don't. What are check-ins? So check-ins is what I do with my clients once a week. Every Tuesday a check-in gets sent out to them. It's a form to fill out. And then every Wednesday I sit down and reply to them. A check-in is a great chance to check in. It's a chance to pause and reflect on how your week has gone, any challenges you've had, any questions you have for me. It's really important so that I understand how you're feeling, what you're thinking, I can see how your training's going because I can see that already in the app. This is more about how you're feeling and what you're thinking, what concerns you have. It's important so that we can overcome any problems you're having. I can give you the feedback you need, and that means you can move on from these challenges and doubts you're having, move on from them, and this sets you up for a successful week every single week. It's a great way to reset. And so I do it in the middle of the week because I think it's a good time for people. I think if I sent it to them on a Monday, they might not read it because Mondays can be really busy at work. If I send it to them on the weekend, again, the weekends can run away from you with family stuff and kids and whatnot. So I think actually a Tuesday and Wednesday is a great day. Tuesday is a good day for them to fill it out. And most of my clients, if not all, fill it out every week or 3 weeks out of 4. They're filling it out, and that's really important. And I say to them, it is a really important part of the coaching process. And then every Wednesday is a good day for me to sit down and reply. And I give quite lengthy replies. This is like you're getting a message from me where I'm being coached, like I'm supporting you and reassuring you and explaining what's happening. And actually that's great. I think that's the best part about one-to-one coaching is that you actually get to have many a conversation with me and we can discuss things and problem solve and make this work for you and make sure that you feel supported and not just that you're taking advice from Instagram or TikTok or anywhere else on the internet. This is someone who's getting to know you and then is giving advice based on you and your lifestyle and your life situation right now. So that is what a check-in is. Then we have, how do you make sure that you do things that you don't feel like doing? Great question. I guess years of repetition, of practice, because, going to the gym is fun for me. So I'm not thinking necessarily about that, even though like a lot of the time I don't feel like going. Today I didn't feel like going. But I'm not going to use that as an example because I think a lot of you will think like, oh, but you're a trainer. Like, of course, you go to the gym. Like, that's your job and also you enjoy it. So if I think of a different example, like sticking to a calorie deficit. Okay, this is a good example. Sticking to a calorie deficit is something I don't particularly want to do. I love food. I'm a foodie. I would rather eat 3,000 calories a day, to be honest. And I wish you could do that and lose weight because that would be just my life made. But that isn't the case. And I do still have ambitious goals and I want to be lean and athletic and achieve like my performance goals. So sticking to a calorie deficit is really hard for me. So how do I do that when I don't feel like doing it? I guess it's knowing your why. It's understanding like why I'm doing it. Why is this important to me? And to me, it's like for the past 3 to 6 months, it wasn't important to me, and that's okay. And so I was very relaxed around food. I still ate super healthily. I still focused on fiber, focused on protein. I still focused on eating healthy most of the time, but I also relaxed a lot around food. And then slowly I've gained some weight. And for me now, it's like, I want to do this because I don't want to continue to gain weight. I also have a holiday in Mexico in 1 month where I'm going to be in a swimsuit. And whilst I am actively working on body image. So I know that I could go to Mexico right now and be confident in a bikini. Let's be clear, like I'm not saying I wouldn't be, but I've worked on that. And that's another thing we can talk about, body image. However, I would love to get there and be like, oh, I actually kind of feel excited to get into a bikini and I love my body. I love what it can do, but also the way it looks. And so that was probably the biggest motivator for me to get started now, is knowing that I'm going away on holiday in a month. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be something super deep and complicated, but just knowing your why and having a strong why and sticking to that. That's one thing that motivates me. I guess then there comes the practical side of like actually doing it. You can have all the best intentions of actually doing it. I plan my week, so I make sure I have a plan, and on a Sunday I'll look at my week and have a look at what's coming up Monday to Friday, or even Monday to Saturday, or Sunday rather, and so I know in advance which are going to be the stressful days, where I'm going to need to be a bit more organised. For nutrition, for example, I think about the days where I'm not going to be able to prepare my food in advance. So what am I going to commit to buying in the supermarkets rather than just grabbing whatever I'm feeling that day? And I'm probably ravenous, so I'd grab like a massive sandwich or some sort of really lots of foods or lots of snacks. Instead, I decide in advance what I'm going to eat, and I'm going to stick to the whole foods. If there's a salad or like a grain and hummus and like one of those like mixed vegetarian salads is actually a really good thing, and then I might pair it with some protein. I'm not going to go for the sandwiches and pasta because I know they make me feel like I'm going off track. And although it's fine to eat a pasta and sandwich in principle because it depends on the overall calories, for me it helps me to stay on track. It helps me to stick to salads and like big vegetable bowls. And not specifically when we're talking about supermarkets and meal deals. If I grab the sandwich or the pasta, I automatically feel like, oh, I'm just giving up on my goal. Instead, I choose the whole grains, the mixed veg. The sushi is fine, even though it's not the most delicious thing in the world, but stuff like that, like rice, I find that helps me basically from a mental perspective to stay more on track. I'm more likely to eat well in the afternoon and evening if I've eaten well at lunch. That's just me. It helps me to just stick to it all the time. So deciding in advance, like, okay, on those days I'm going to be out, I won't be able to prepare my food either, so what am I going to pick? Okay, I'm going to pick these things. When I go to the snack section, I'm going to pick fruit because its vitamins and minerals are in fruit and it's very low in calories, so I'm not going to pick a protein bar. So making those decisions in advance. So I hope that helps, but basically being a bit organised, knowing why I'm doing it, and then honestly a little bit of a kick up the bum and just doing it. Just deciding to do it. And accountability. So like I said, I've been using Instagram stories. Oh, maybe I said it on a different podcast, but I've been using Instagram stories as a bit of accountability. So I've been sharing what I've been doing for fat loss. And by putting it on my stories, I know people have eyes on it and people are expecting me to show the results and to show that I'm still doing it. So now I have that accountability and that motivates me too. And that's probably why you pay for a coach. It's for that accountability. That's huge. That's actually huge. Next question. How to increase my workouts with HIIT, high intensity interval training, to help fitness or stamina. I actually love a Tabata, and quite a few of my clients have Tabatas in their week, especially those that like work out from home. Tabatas you can do from home. It's a type of circuit. You can do it body weight. You don't necessarily need equipment. and it can be really not time consuming, like time efficient. So most Tabatas in the Tabatas I program are 20 minutes, 20-minute workouts, high energy, high intensity, 20 seconds of intense exercise, 10 seconds rest, so very little rest, and then 20 seconds with another exercise. And you go for about 8 rounds, then you take 1 to 2 minutes rest, and then you go for another 8 rounds with some different exercises, and so on. You do that 4 times, and that is 20 minutes. That makes 20 minutes. So Tabatas are a great way. 20-minute workouts. You can put it in on a day, any day that maybe you're not going to the gym, just because going to the gym takes time. So on a day where you've decided not to go to the gym, you could do a Tabata from home, and that's a great way to basically just to exercise from home. And yeah, it will increase your fitness for sure and your stamina. There are other ways you can do that as well. If you're looking to specifically increase your stamina, you could go out on short runs, for example. You could do some sprinting up a hill. That is a great way to improve your fitness and your stamina. So jogging to a hill, sprinting up it 5 to 10 times, depending on how you feel. Don't throw up. And the sprint should be 20 to 30 second max sprint up a hill. Don't do a 2-minute sprint up a hill. That's not a sprint. They could even be a 10 to 20 second sprint up a hill and then jog back down. So there's a lot of ways. And also lifting weights in the gym for an hour is improving your fitness and your stamina. So all of those are improving your overall fitness. But if you're specifically looking at you're already lifting 2-3 times a week in the gym, then something like a Tabata or a little bit of cardio, you could add in 10 minutes rowing or 10 minutes cycling at the end of your gym workouts, could be a good way to increase your cardiovascular fitness. Next, my other questions are over here. How should I balance my macros to support muscle gain and staying lean? So someone wants to stay lean, not gain weight, but gain muscle, which is actually weight, but specifically gain lean muscle. The key is in training hard, so training regularly in the gym. If you have specific areas that you want to tone up, then I would also work on those areas in the gym. So for example, doing 3 sets of 12 reps of a shoulder exercise is going to help you have more shoulder definition, or of a tricep exercise, or of an ab exercise, or of a quad exercise, or a glute exercise. That is going to help you have more definition in those areas. So I would do that. And then you hear this question that asks about how should I balance my macros? Macros being your carbs, fats, and protein. Make sure you're getting 1.6 grams of protein times your body weight, minimum. Make sure you're getting 4 grams of carbs per body weight. And then whatever's left over in your calories, make sure you're eating at maintenance. You don't want to be in a deficit or you won't build muscle. So you can build some muscle in a deficit, but it won't be as good. So try and be at maintenance. And once you've figured out your protein and your carbs, whatever's left over, that can be for fats. What I find is I personally tend to eat a little bit more fats than carbs. So I increase if I'm a little bit over on fats and a little bit under on carbs, don't stress about it. But that's a good place to start, is that 4 grams of carbs per body weight. That is great. And then whatever's left over, fats. So to summarize, key things: work out hard enough, target the areas you want to build muscle in, and then eat at maintenance, because like I said before, when you're trying to lose weight, you will lose both fat and muscle. So you can build some muscle, but it's harder when you're trying to lose weight. So if you're trying to gain muscle right now, eat at maintenance. And then in terms of those maintenance calories, have 1.6 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So times it by your body weight, 4 grams of carbs, times it by your body weight, and whatever's left over for fats. So I hope that helps. And ultimately, just again, same as fat loss, do it for long enough. You're not going to see a change in a week. If you do, great, that's fantastic. But you're likely not to see a change in a week. But in 4 weeks, yes. In 8 weeks, yes. And so do it for long enough. If you have any other questions on that, drop me a message. If you're struggling with it, drop me a message on Instagram at strengthwithg. Happy to help. What are good indicators that I'm eating enough to fuel training but not store excess fat? The answer for me is, do you see that you're gaining fat in your progress photos, in how your clothes are fitting? Do you feel like you're gaining fat? If you are, then maybe you're in a calorie surplus. Maybe you're eating too much. I don't know. But yeah, that's what I would use, is are you seeing yourself gaining fat? And And then, are you eating enough to fuel your training? Do you feel good in your training? Do you have energy? Are you hitting PBs or feeling energized? Are you leaving the gym on a high? Or are you feeling tired all the time? If you're feeling tired all the time, I would look at sleep and I would look at your nutrition. I would look at, you're probably under eating, specifically under eating carbs. So yeah, make sure you're at calorie maintenance, that you're fueling yourself enough. The one last thing you could look at is meal timings, but it really is the cherry on top of the cake. Like, you need to be doing those other things first. So eating at maintenance, eating sufficient carbs, and sleeping, resting enough, to make sure you're fueling enough for your training. The final cherry on top could be meal timing. Obviously, if you go to train right before dinner and you've been not eating, if you go to training right before dinner time, you've had lunch and you haven't had anything since lunch, then you're probably starting to get quite hungry for dinner. So what you could do is move your training earlier so it's a little bit closer to lunch, so you're not as hungry when you go to the gym. Or you could take a banana and have a snack right before your training. Those are two things you could do. So meal timing so that you're not starving when you go to training. Then the last thing I'll chat about, and really the last thing for this podcast, is my new client, Kira, and how I've been supporting her with her autism. And it's been really interesting and really rewarding, and yeah, I've really enjoyed working with her. I've really enjoyed learning from her. She's been very open from the start, and she's, been very open. And by that, I mean, said to me when I've helped, when I've done things that really helped her, she said, like, that's really helpful, actually. And so I said to her, please do tell me when something's helpful, so I know that it's helpful. And you can also tell me when something isn't helpful, it's unhelpful. So for example, when I first met her, I sent her a video. Well, before I first met her, when she messaged me and she actually booked in to have a few sessions in the gym with me. And when she was arriving, I sent her a video of where she would drive through the specific, where the turning was for her car, what gates she would go through, what the code for the gates was. And then the video showed her where to park and where the entrance to the gym was. And it said, I'll be waiting for you outside. So I'll meet you outside the gym so you don't have to go looking for me. And I sent her this video because I'd filmed it before. Like, it was something I had that I used for clients. But she told me when she arrived, thank you, that was really helpful, because autistic people, or specifically her, but I think it is a trait of many, maybe not all, but many autistic people, is that they learn visually, or they find visual things easier. Like, if I had written all that in a message, she would have found it really overwhelming. So the video was really helpful. I also know that voice notes are helpful, and she likes sending them to me as well. What else? There's been lots of little things, like I asked her how she best learns, and so I'm recording a video for her which is going to have some slides in it, and it's going to be a video rather than a written document. A lot of the guides and resources I've given clients are written, or they often have a podcast associated with them, but yeah, the bulk of it is written. And so I asked her how she would learn best, and she said with a video would be best, or with something visual. So that is what I'm preparing for her on a topic that she's interested in. And then I'm sure there's lots of little things we've done as well, or that I do, but most of all, I'm conscious when I'm around her. I pay attention to how she responds to things, and if I notice her changing a little bit, I'll ask her. And I think asking and then listening to what they have to say, what she has to say, or your client has to say, is really important, because I don't think there is just one answer. I've also been very understanding. Like, there have been some challenges with her in terms of her training and in terms of her nutrition, and I see it as like, I'm here to also learn and understand you. I honestly do this with all clients, but even more so with her. I know it's important that I listen to her and understand what challenges are. I often ask her, like, okay, you're struggling with this thing. Why do you think you're struggling? Do you have an idea of what would help? And I start with that, and I have ideas in my head, but I'm not going to just put a plaster on it and say, you need to do this. But instead, I listen, I ask if she already has some solutions in mind, because she may well already know, like, okay, this does help me. And then maybe I can just help her to keep her accountable to it. So yeah, those are just a few ways I've helped her. It's been super interesting. I'm sure I'll learn a lot more from her about autism, and that's wonderful for me. And I really, really want to support her in the best way possible. So I want to do the best job I can and meet her where she's at. So I'm very grateful to her for being so open about it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you have any other questions, please submit them in my next question box on Instagram in my stories. I do that about once a week. Once a week, I do a question box in my stories on a Tuesday. So if you want to submit a question, submit it there. And yeah, remember to like, comment, subscribe to my podcast. I would love that. It's great to see that you're finding this useful. And if you want to work with me, as always, head to my website, strengthswithg.com, or message me on Instagram @strengthswithg. Thanks. Bye.